After declining the only employment offer allowed to reach my ears, I started receiving regular advice to stop looking for work as the connection staff were suddenly concerned for my mental health. Staff, volunteers, and even clients would suddenly stop me and ask if I was feeling alright with looks of great concern. I was told I had to admit I had a problem before anybody could help me. What that problem was exactly was never made clear, but nobody could help me until I admitted it. A confusingly mind-twisting little catch-22 to ponder as I whiled away the snore-filled nights. The pressure to apply for housing benefits also increased. I again reminded my caseworker I had no need for housing assistance as a friend had lent me money to cover my rent at my former residence once the connection helped me find employment. He informed me my situation had changed. I should not be looking for work and my 28-day limit for staying in the night shelter had long expired. They were bending the rules by allowing me to stay, and for that I should be thankful. I asked if they would really put me back on the streets and was told,
That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you won't be allowed to stay here.
When I pointed out the Orwellian doublespeak, I was told I was being silly and reminded once again how grateful I should be for the help they had already provided. I needed to show willing or I wouldn't be allowed to use their facilities. Unnerved, I agreed to look at a studio flat in Orpington. I asked why it was so far away and was informed I did not fit the criteria to be housed in London. I asked what the criteria consisted of and was told it was too complicated to get into. He was too busy. When I restated I could easily return to my former flat once I could confirm regular payment of rent, I was told the system does not operate like that. Repeated attempts to ascertain how the system operated remained unanswered beyond the now common refrains of,
Don't worry about it. It's too complicated. We know what we're doing.
Or the increasingly chilling stone-faced smile. 2 days later I arrived at the house and Riley noticed I didn't need the specific number to find it. The yard and exterior of the building were in such a state of disrepair compared to the other buildings on the street it was comically obvious. The uneven dirt and gravel were colorfully punctuated with a few patches of brown grass that had grown past my waist. The dozens of beer cans overflowing from the rubbish bins and scattered around the front yard proved a nice decorative touch, as was the broken bowl of moldy cat food on the front step. The smell of stale kitty litter dominated the entryway. Closer examination revealed a pile consisting of 3 latex gloves, 2 hypodermic needles, and a rubber tube. Presumably Kitty had a drug habit. A moldy dog bed and battered rental bike were propped against the side wall. I would find these were all surprisingly common features of charity-approved housing, only the color of the front door's chipped paint and brands of beer changed. There were 3 other people waiting, all sent from different homeless charities. We had shown up well before the appointed time. One man was drunk. The second, covered in scars and rashes, was graphically describing the various illnesses from which he suffered, pausing only to urinate on the front of the house. The third, surveying the dereliction we were standing in, took a drag off his joint and quipped,
"This is a place where dreams go to die."
It was a great line. I quickly slipped away to discreetly jot it down for future literary posterity and noticed the following sign attached to all the lampposts on both sides of the street. £10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of persons responsible for the killing and mutilation of cats, rabbits, and foxes. If you find any mutilated bodies or body parts, please contact Snarl. Clearly one of England's finer neighborhoods. A half hour after the appointed meeting time, the letting agent phoned to say he would be late. He couldn't find the house. When he finally arrived almost an hour after the phone call, my pot-smoking companion with the Shakespearean wit recognized him, but not fondly.
"No way, no fucking way. I'm not getting screwed by you fuckers again."
He stormed away, shoving the agent and kicking a car as he raged down the street, leaving a tempest of the most delightfully foul curses in his wake. It wasn't a good omen. The flat itself proved to be as distinct as the yard. It was filthy. Rubbish from the previous tenant was still scattered on the floor and countertop. No effort had been made to sweep the floor or wipe down the walls. The agent was apologetic and assured us he would look into the matter. That claim would prove to be as common in future viewings as beer cans in the front yard. There was rarely any attempt made to even pick rubbish off the floor before viewing. In some cases the smell of mold was stomach-churning, but after the standard apology and promise to look into the matter, you were offered the assurance it would be easy to clean after you settled in, and the guarantee of stores within walking distance to purchase the necessary supplies. With the viewing complete, it was time for the negotiations to commence. This consisted of the agent stating if anyone was interested in accepting the flat, the contract would have to be signed immediately as there were other viewings and it would be claimed by the end of the day. When I asked to look at the lease agreement, I was informed there was no need for me to see it as the charity would take care of it. I insisted on seeing it and was answered with a curt no. I asked a third time and was ignored completely. I wasn't even granted the courtesy of a stone-faced smile. Amazingly, one of the remaining viewers, the sick one, agreed to take it.
I've seen worse.
He shrugged. To be fair, experience would prove him right. I would see worse over the coming months. After the viewing, I ran into the gentleman who had stormed off as we both waited for the train back to London. After declining the joint he offered, I asked him about his previous experience with the letting agency. He said he had been housed with them a couple of years previously after splitting up with his girlfriend and was still paying off the debt he incurred. There had been a security deposit and administration fees he had not been told about. He had also been told by his charity the landlord would be responsible for paying the council tax, then found out months later he was responsible and was in debt to the local council. The leasing agency had regularly added service charges and penalty fees without warning, cutting into the already meager amount of benefits he was being paid. They then evicted him for falling behind on those payments. He was still in debt to both the council and the agency, and had to regularly attend court as they attempted to receive their restitution from his benefit money. I wasn't sure what to make of his account. It sounded slightly ludicrous, but the details were specific enough to have an air of truth about them. He probably wasn't revealing all the facts relating to his situation, particularly those relating to his role or his own actions. And his marijuana use was more than likely a key factor in his financial woes. But I had to remind myself not to let my middle-class snobbery relating to his drug use invalidate his claims. And his intention was sincere. He didn't want others to get caught in the same trap. He had nothing to gain by advising a stranger he would never see again. I returned to London and related the conversation to one of the staff members who had sat me down for a spontaneous chat, not a formal meeting, just a friendly chat. She told me there was no truth to it and not to listen to what my homeless friends at the Connection said. When I clarified it wasn't a friend but a stranger who was genuinely concerned about the future welfare of another person, our friendly chat came to an abrupt close with a smile. The stone-cold one. A few days later she sat me down for another informal chat to thank me for sharing my concerns about the leasing agency with her. The staff had held a meeting and it had transpired they had heard similar stories. She informed me they were no longer dealing with that agency and to put aside any worries I might have about potentially renting from them. She couldn't share any details with me just yet, but the Connection had something else in mind to help me. That statement alone filled me with an ominous sense of dread. And the entire exchange proved to be yet another performance staged for my benefit, peppered with lies. A month later a friend was sent to a viewing on property owned by the same landlords. Over a year later the Connection were still sending clients to properties owned by that agency. They hadn't ended the business relationship at all. They had lied. Again. That first dip into the murky waters of charity-approved housing proved an eye-opener and added to my increasing concerns surrounding the processing of the homeless community. Meat is process. The homeless deserve better. If they don't shuffle willingly to their slaughter,